welcome to the first Sunday of the church year. The first Sunday of Advent, 4 weeks to prepare our hearts and our lives for the coming of Jesus. If I'm really honest, I really struggle with our readings during Advent, because there's a disconnect between what's happening with us here and what's happening in the world outside us, in all the places that we go and all the places that we visit. In the world around us, the Christmas music is playing, the fire is being lit, the lights are coming on and twinkling on our streets and through our windows. And we arrive to church to hear the words, "Wherever the corpse is, the vultures will gather." There's a disconnect, a deep uncomfortableness that I feel with that leaves me going, sorry, what? What we're invited to do within our tradition is not to rush to Christmas itself, but to prepare ourselves for it, to reflect on what Christmas means and how it transforms our understanding of the world and the ways in which we live. This is the season we call Advent, and to give you a little bit of nerd stuff in the background, it comes from the Latin adventus, which means arrival or coming. And we celebrate during Advent 3 ways in which Christ comes into the world. The first is in the past, Jesus coming into the world 2,000 years ago. The second is in the present, all the ways in which Jesus makes himself manifest, known, present, and visible through the ways in which we love and live in the world at the moment. And then thirdly and finally, coming again in glory to bring about the redemption and the restoration of all things. And so over this journey in Advent, over these 4 weeks, we light 4 candles that take us through 4 different themes: hope, peace, joy, and love. So today is our first Sunday of celebrating how Christ comes into the world, in the past, in the present, and in his fullness in the future. And today's Sunday is all about hope. Hope is a powerful thing, a crucial, an important thing, but kind of a difficult thing to define. We have our definition of a feeling of expectation and desire for a certain thing to happen. That doesn't really capture the fullness of the hope that's supposed to get us out of bed and moving in the world. So sometimes it's not necessarily a definition of hope that helps us, but rather a description from somebody who sought to live it out. We find with Emily Dickinson, she writes, "Hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without the words and never stops at all." Which is beautiful, but if you ask my 5th-year English teacher, you'll know I don't really understand it. I need something that is also beautiful and ethereal maybe, but something more practical, grounded in reality and livedness. For that, we can turn to Desmond Tutu, who said, "Hope is being able to see that there is light despite all the darkness." That helps. And that helps in the world as it is at the moment, where it often feels like darkness can be the order of the day when we look at what is happening within our society and across our world. Tutu's life and words, they bring us closer also because he experienced suffering and knew what it was to stand as a person of hope within a context where it seemed like hope would consistently be taken away. Anne Lamott takes it even further. She's a beautiful writer. If you get a chance, if you're looking for a book for Christmas, look for something from Anne Lamott, who writes these beautiful essays that move the heart and make you burst out laughing at inappropriate times. It's a great combination of things. But she says hope begins in the dark, the stubborn hope that if you just show up and try to do the right thing, that dawn will come. She takes us further into what Advent is about. Not just about waiting passively, but about actively waiting, about showing up, about trying to do the right thing, about participating in the fulfillment of hope before we see it come in all its fullness. I have a favorite description of hope, and it comes in the form of a character from a book series that many of us will be familiar with. How many of you are familiar with the Chronicles of Narnia? Oh, no? The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe? Oh, okay, so a few people. Okay. So, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Oh, I feel like I'm going to have to do way more backstory now. Okay, here's the Wikipedia for the Chronicles of Narnia. Narnia is an imaginary world into which a group of children slip into through the wardrobe in their relative's house when they've been moved from the city to the countryside during World War I. And so, in order to protect themselves, they've been kind of taken away into the country. And they slip into this wardrobe, and that takes them into Narnia, this imaginary world. And there's this kind of Christ-like figure called Aslan, who's a lion. And there's 9 or 10 books that trace the entire way through, all the way from The Magician's Nephew and The Horse and His Boy, through The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, Prince Caspian, Voyage of the Dawn Treader, all the way through to the last battle. I did very well there. And in one of these books, one of the less-known books, is Puddleglum the Marshwiggle, and he lives in a book called The Silver Chair. And in The Silver Chair, there are 2 characters who come from our world, Jill and Eustace. There's a Narnian prince named Rilian, and there's a strange creature called a Marshwiggle, who is our friend Puddleglum. His name is Puddleglum. He lives in a swamp, and he talks like Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh. He's one of the most depressing characters I've ever experienced in literature. He's constantly morose and slow and sad and pessimistic. Not the person you would think of as being a bastion or a paragon of hope. He's constantly negative, constantly dour, with nothing good or hopeful to say, until the moment that he does. At the point at which I'm going to read from in the book, the characters have been brought from the overworld of Narnia itself. They've slipped somehow into the underworld, a place run by an evil witch. She's had them in for dinner, and she's released a gas that fogs their mind, and they've begun to believe the lies that she's been telling them. She has convinced them that the underworld is the only world that exists. There is no Narnia, there is nothing above the ground. All they have ever known is the reality that she has offered them. There is no sun. They just saw a lamp, and they imagined a bigger one. A childish game, but time to put it away. It's cute, but it's childish, and it's time to grow up. They saw a cat, and they imagined a bigger one, a lion, and they called it Aslan. And it's cute, but it's childish, and it's time to put it away. It's a childish game, but they need to realize that the only world they have ever known is the world that she has offered them. A world without the sun, a world without Aslan, a world without light, without fresh air, and everything that they knew that they had experienced in reality in all its fullness. And the 3 children are drifting over dinner into this reality that she has handed them. They're falling asleep, drifting off into a story without hope or truth. But Puddleglum knows that something isn't right. He can't quite figure out what's not right, but he knows that there's something more to the world and to life than what the witch has been saying. So he walks over to the fireplace and he stamps his foot into the fire, hoping that the shock of it will help him think clearly. The heat and the pain clear his mind, and they free him from his mental fogginess, and he turns to the witch and he says this. "One word, ma'am," he said, coming back from the fire, limping because of the pain. "One word. All you've been saying is quite right, I shouldn't wonder. I'm a chap who always liked to know the worst and then put the best face on it I can. So I won't deny any of what you said. But there's one thing more to be said even so. Suppose we have only dreamed or made up all these things, trees and grass and sun and moon and stars and Aslan himself. Suppose we have. Then all that I can say is that in that case, the made-up things seem a good deal more important than the real ones. Suppose this black pit of a kingdom of yours is the only world. Well, it strikes me as a pretty poor one. And that's a funny thing when you come to think of it. We're just babies making up a game. If you're right. But 4 babies playing a game can make a play world which licks your real world hollow. That's why I'm going to stand by the play world. I'm on Aslan's side, even if there isn't any Aslan to lead it. I'm going to live as like a Narnian as I can, even if there isn't any Narnia. So thanking you kindly for our supper, if these two gentlemen and the young lady are ready, we're leaving your court at once setting out in the dark to spend our lives looking for the overland. Not that our lives will be very long, I should think, but that's a small loss if the world is as dull a place as you say it is. That for me is a picture of hope. A picture of the idea that there is a reality beyond what we sometimes settle for. That the story of the human experience is not brought down simply to numbers or possessions, but this is a story of people who bear the image of God and live in the world together, experiencing Him and reminding each other constantly of this truth. Christ came into the world 2,000 years ago and showed us what it means to be human, and invites us to discover it for ourselves as image bearers, as people who reflect His life and goodness. And Christ comes into the world right now, in our hearts, in our hopes, in the ways in which we love each other, encourage each other, and embody all of the goodness of God to each other, particularly when times are dark. And finally, that Christ will come again. That as it promises in Revelation, He will wipe every tear from every eye. There will be no more death, no more mourning, nor pain. But He will bring about instead the restoration of all things, where all things will be made well. Our Advent journey is led by Puddleglum, setting out in the dark to find the overland, trusting there is always a light shining, even if we can't see it. Always a home to return to, even if we feel lost. Always a God waiting to invite us back to the place where we belong.